This episode of the Buffalonian Podcast is brought to you by the Cast Source Podcast Network, a podcast network built with and for entrepreneurs. We cover many genres, including sports, business, mental health, marketing, and entertainment, featuring podcasts such as Sports Bring People Together, Limitless, Saviors of the Metaverse, and The Athletic Mindset. Learn more at castsource.com/podcasts. Now, without further ado, let's get into the Buffalonian Podcast. The Buffalo Bills have finally come back to win a one-score game, and the Buffalo Sabres are moving quickly towards the beginning of their season. We'll be talking rundown, some would you rather, hot takes, trivia, and more. This is the Buffalonian Podcast. All right, let's go. We are back with the Buffalonian Podcast. I'm Joe Cali, and as always, I'm joined by Dom Loss and Mike Marino. We're all back in the studio.
I don't know about as always,
As always, quote unquote.
It's becoming a rare occasion now.
Yeah, maybe. And, we were out for a week because I had to go to the ER for appendicitis. So, it was wonderful. Bills game earlier in the week and then ER later in the week. You can't ask for anything better than that. So
glad you're okay, big guy.
Well, thanks. And I'm glad we're all three able to be here today. We're back better than ever. And the Bills, we gotta look back on a couple weeks here. We didn't get to cover the Miami game.
That disappointment?
And all of a sudden the Dolphins fans are taking over social media saying the East runs through them, all of that kind of stuff. And I don't know. What were your thoughts after we just game ends, Isaiah McKenzie doesn't run out of bounds and we lose the clock? What are your thoughts?
I think it was just frustration because I thought
I hucked my phone across the room.
I thought the Bills played, with all their injuries, played a really good game, and I thought they had more than enough opportunities to win the game, and they didn't execute in big moments, and that's the reason why. Obviously, they have a loss on their schedule.
Yeah, no, I think just overall, having a secondary that was made up of mostly backups didn't help. It feeling like 100 degrees and being as humid as it was, that didn't help. And, it was just unfortunate little mistakes that we made. You can't be perfect at every second of the season. So, it reminds me a little bit of the New England game last year when we lost to them. And everyone was like, oh, the Patriots, they're coming back. It's going to be them again. And, we shut them up pretty quick the next game and then in the playoffs. So, I feel the same way about the Dolphins right now.
Yeah, I don't think it's any concern that they lost. It's more, I don't want to say fluky because you do got to give Miami credit. They made the plays, but
right.
It's more of the weather was and the injuries, I think, had a lot to do with it, but also the Bills just shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I don't know how you can excuse having the ball for 40 minutes on offense and your quarterback throwing 400 yards and not making the plays. You know what I mean? It's just granted, like you said, the weather, that was also a factor. Almost 100 degrees and humid in Miami. That's absolutely nuts. And the Miami Dolphins have it set up so the away team's in the sun for the entire game.
Yeah.
Which is kind of...
It's pretty smart. It's a good tactic,
if you use your home field advantage, really, you have one then. But I tweeted out, I remember, I was like, I don't want to hear any Miami fans saying the East runs to them. We'll see in week 15 when you try and play in snow and you're going to look like toddlers running around on a snow day. So, that's how I think it's going to go. I'm not worried about it at all.
The Bills got that game in Miami out of the way. It's a tough loss.
It's a tough place to play in general.
It's a tough place to play. I think it's a frustration on the fact of the Bills' inability to run the ball very effectively that game. The fact that Josh threw the ball 63 times for 400 yards. 400 yards, but when he throws 63 times, it's really not nearly as impressive.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a frustration, if we take account of the Ravens game of the lack of a consistent run game outside of Josh, plus really the injuries of the wide receivers has really hurt the Bills' vertical passing game.
Right.
I read a stat where 9 of the last 137 passes for Josh Allen have traveled 20-plus yards. That's a small amount of... That's not a lot.
Yeah.
And you look at it as, is this Gabe Davis being hobbled? Is it people are playing that two-shell look of the two high safeties? Is it Ken Dorsey? And you look at it, and you have to say the Bills. Warren Sharp made a stat where it's the Bills only face 2 high safeties, like they're 21st in the league in that. So it's really not like they're getting those looks that much. It's I think it's somewhat personnel based, not having a great offensive line. That takes time those routes to develop, but not really having a deep threat with Gabe injured, I think is a little bit concerning. And that's why when you have the Bills offense on the field for 90 plays, they wore themselves out. That's because they don't have that ability right now to stretch the field and get maybe a cheap 60-yard
Right,
touchdown.
send Gavis down deep like they did in the Chiefs game last year. Just straight, just send them down, But
they're really lacking that element of the offense right now. So
I mean, it's definitely, I'd rather get these injuries over with in the beginning of the season and have everyone healthy for the tail end, like the run, really, at that point, I mean, it's just kind of looking at it now as what happens if this keeps happening throughout the season, which is a little nerve-wracking, I mean, it's just kind of, we still have Diggs, right? And he's been a huge playmaker this season, more than last season at this point, and you're missing Davis, who really showed up last year. I mean, he still has that foot injury. Dawson Knox was out for a while, too. He's been kind of held to nothing, and he was a big part of the pass game, too. So I look at it as we need to get these guys healthy, and we need someone other than Devin Singletary who can run the ball. They tried throwing Moss in there in that Ravens game, too.
Well, let's
stuffed it back up.
Let's transition to the Ravens game.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, what were you feeling when it was 20-3?
So, I was kind of like, really, like this is how it's gonna go. We're gonna just kind of shoot ourselves in the foot here. I know the pick on the first drive was, I was like, wow, this is how the game's gonna go here.
Yeah.
So, I think it's been proven this year that we are more of a second half team. So I thought that drive coming out of halftime was probably the most important drive of the game to see if we would set the tone. And thinking about it, Baltimore just 2 weeks before had blown it against Miami, and that was an even larger lead. But they've now blown 2 17-point leads. But besides that, I think Allen. I say this like last year when we played the Bucks, he put that game on his back.
Yeah.
I think Allen kind of did the same thing, and Baltimore was like, we're not losing this game.
No.
We're not getting embarrassed here.
Well, you know how I feel about Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens organization. He did tweet out after the game. He said no issues or whatever he said. He said good game.
I just want to say both of his picks, like, they weren't his fault. Like, one was a deflection.
No, and Jordan
the
Poyer
other one,
had a
Jordan Poyer just
masterful play.
ran down. So
the
like,
second pick was his fault. That was a terrible play.
I mean, it was kind of a broken up play. Probably should have kicked it.
If you're an elite quarterback, he was wide open. Like, you gotta be able to see that and throw that touch. Two people on that play were pretty open. You gotta be able to.
Our boy Prince Emili breaking up in the deflection and then getting cut from the practice squad.
That was bizarre because I actually thought he played pretty well.
Well, they signed Justin Zimmer instead.
Yeah,
That's
bringing
true.
him back.
I think there was a lot of hard feelings when it was 20-3. A lot of people were complaining that the Bills were frauds, and for me, it was just decompressing. Trying to like take my mind off the game and just kind of take a breath. And I think that's what the Bills did, is that they weathered the storm. They got that. I felt honestly pretty confident when it was 20-10 at halftime. I was like, I really believe in this. The coaching staff is going to make the adjustments. The defense really only gave up one really bad drive in the first half. Because the first touchdown was like 8 yards of offense because they had first and goal. So I felt pretty confident where the Bills were, knowing what that coaching staff does to make adjustments, and getting the 3-and-out, getting the field goal, and then getting another quick stop touchdown, and then obviously the big play on fourth down. What do you guys think about the decision for Harbaugh to roll the dice there?
I mean, I understand it because if you score a touchdown, that puts more pressure on us to have to score a touchdown rather than just get into field goal range and kick it. I look at all the analysts and they're like, oh, you had to make the kick. Like, how do you not kick it there? But we've seen time and time again that Harbaugh is someone that likes to go for it on fourth and goal. Like, I think last year they were playing Pittsburgh. Instead of kicking the extra point, they tried for 2 and they missed it, so they lost. Like, he likes to gamble, but I think at the same time, if they had scored a touchdown on fourth and goal, all the analysts would have been like, "Oh, that was such a great decision."
Right. They
that
said
was like the best play of the game. Like,
yeah,
great.
They would have
coaching
liked
right
the
there.
aggressiveness and wanted more of that, but now because it didn't work out, they're.
I think it makes sense to go for it because you have Lamar, and they're so successful on 4th and 2
Like
and less.
80% conversion.
Yeah, they're very successful on it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we just played it really well, limiting Lamar being able to run out, forcing him back to throw off his back foot, which led to a pick.
I mean, honestly, just looking at the game in general, it's the Bills in their season so far. They've allowed 7 points in the second half. They're, like Dom said, a second half team.
Shutout in the third quarter.
Yeah, complete shutout in the third quarter. So, I mean, Milano definitely, like those guys, like the defense figured it out. Tremaine actually having an all right year. I'm surprised, you know.
All right.
Wants that contract.
Yeah, he
very well.
wants it, and even Poyer like stepping up and all pro Poe. He wants the contract, and it's like it's really cool to see because these guys we were really questioning. Like Tremaine, we were questioning hard all through the offseason. We were like, is this guy even going to get his contract? And I think if he continues this throughout the rest of the season, there's no way you can deny it, especially the run defense. Like we stopped him in the second half. You take away Lamar's run, he became a one-dimensional, just, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't anything spectacular anymore, and that's how you beat Lamar, where, you know, he doesn't have that rocket arm like Allen does. He doesn't have that stuff. We took away his biggest strength because that's what we needed to do. He still made some plays, but I mean, you took away what he does best, and we started coming back.
Yeah, he's still an MVP level quarterback. At the end of the day, like you had to think of in that moment, what does your opponent want you to do? And I'll tell you, the Bills would want them to kick the field goal there because 14-play drive, you just ate up 8 minutes on the clock. They're tired. They're exhausted. What does the opponent want you to do? The opponent wants you to kick the field goal, get Josh Allen out there 3-point game. So I respect it. I think a little bit of it was in fear of Allen, which I don't know if you want to be in fear of. But at the end of the day, like if the Bills were in a similar situation, I mean, putting the ball in the hands of Josh Allen at the 2-yard line to get us 2 yards.
I mean, we tried that last year with Tennessee, and this year, didn't we? A couple fourth downs. It was like 4th and 2 or whatever we went for.
I think you got to be aggressive in this league. I think it's an aggressive league, and when you have 2 elite quarterbacks, I don't think you're going to win by kicking field goals. So I like it. I thought some people originally were complaining about the play call, about how he was in the shotgun and they didn't run the ball or try and get him moving. But at the end of the day, he had 2 open players on the play. Duvernay was open in the corner of the end zone, and the running back who got motioned out was, if he would have hit him, you know, right off the bat, it would have been a walk-in touchdown. So what happened was that he was looking dead at Mark Andrews, and they covered up his number one option, and then the really good pass rush by the Bills. And then Poyer was able to, you know, come back after kind of getting beaten early in the play. So it's a credit to the Bills pass rush to help the coverage. You know, you work as a unit there. Pass rush and coverage help each other out. Sometimes you get, you know, coverage sacks, and sometimes the pass rush pressure helps when the coverage breaks down.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a good decision for them to go for it. I thought this might have been Sean McDermott's best game as a head coach. Just the rally the troops, the game management, the aggressiveness.
Yeah, and having all them kneeling at the end, you know, like right on the goal line and sending out Bass, like not trying to push it in for that extra touchdown. I thought that was...
Yeah, shout out to the Ravens player who tackled Motor.
Away.
Yeah, shout out to him because you could tell a lot of the Ravens guys were just going to let him score.
Yeah.
And he tackles them, and you can see Calais Campbell right after throw up his arms.
Oh,
Marcus
yeah.
Peters was going off.
Peters was going after Harbaugh on the sideline.
But
Yeah.
he was going down. Like I think he would have went down. I just think it's
Yeah, he's not Nick Chubb where he's going to get greedy and score.
It was funny though.
He doesn't
like,
want the fantasy points for himself.
on the QB sneak with Allen to get to the 1 yard line on like the replay, you could see Calais Campbell try and like pull Allen into the end zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad they didn't though, and Bass came out and did what he had to do. I mean, we talk about, you know, some of the misplays in the beginning, like we mentioned, you know, like that interception and a couple fumbles, right? Mm-hmm. 2, I want to say. Was there 2 or was there only 1?
I believe there was only 1, but there was a lot of drop passes.
Yes, a lot of drop passes. I mean, before the game, it was misty, and then it actually started raining. So, I mean, the elements weren't exactly in everyone's favor, but
it wasn't going to be an offensive.
No, it was going to be a defensive game.
It was going to be kind of a little bit of a gritty game. And credit for the Bills, like good teams win on the road.
Yeah.
You have to win on the road to be a good team, and it was a solid win. You know,
I think it was a statement. You had to come back out and prove that you could do it, you know. And now everyone can shut up about how the Bills haven't won a one-score game. You know what I mean? Like in the fourth quarter, they actually buttoned it up and sealed the victory for themselves. So
it was a solid win against a very good football team. I think the Ravens are a good team, and so winning it in their building is no easy feat, especially trailing by 17 points when everything seems to be going your way. To have the mental toughness to rebound from that. I think we go back and forth about it. Like Bills teams from the past would have just folded.
Last time that happened was when Ryan Fitzpatrick rallied against the Patriots in 2011.
17 largest comeback in Allen's career. So, talking about the game, who do you think stepped up the most? Obviously, Allen's the obvious choice.
I would definitely...
He put the burden of the offense on his shoulders. But who do you think maybe defensively stepped up?
I would definitely say Matt Milano.
I would say
he's my all-star defensive player.
I already gave out my shout-out to Prince Emili for deflecting that pass.
No, I think
most random player on the team to make a big play to turn the tide. Honestly, get momentum really going in our way, and then Poyer with those 2 picks.
Poyer was huge. I just think the defense.
Kyrie Elam
was
lockdown
targeted once the whole game. I think it was a defensive team effort, but I think the 2 linebackers really stood out.
Yeah,
Milano made big plays. Emmons was really solid.
He snatched Lamar Jackson on that one play. That would have been a huge gain if he didn't grab him by the ankle, But
I think what's frustrating for me is we now at 4 games into the year. Obviously, it's not the biggest sample size of the world, but we saw Brandon Beane in the offseason go out, get Tim Settle, get Daquan Jones. Obviously, Jordan Phillips is banged up, but get these big guys, these big run stuffers, for the reason of to take out blocks, so it allows your linebackers to play downhill unblocked. So they don't have to be, trying to shed 300-pound linemen. You see it with Tremaine, how he's taken that step this year. Matt Milano playing, I think, he's always been kind of a Pro Bowl linebacker, but I think he's playing like an all-pro, maybe the best linebacker in the first 4 weeks of the year. Those 2 guys are, not being touched by these offensive linemen because you get Daquan Jones taking double teams, Tim Settle taking double teams. Obviously, when Phillips comes back, excited to see what Oliver does as kind of a disruptor in the backfield.
Yeah.
I think that's frustrating in this aspect of looking how important the defensive line has been for the coverage on that 4th and goal play, the linebackers play. It's frustrating to me that year in and year out now we are talking about this Bills running game not getting going, and it's listen, the running backs are below average. Singletary probably an average running back. He hasn't been terrible.
Singletary should be a second string to an above average first string. That's how it should be.
He should be in a 2-man committee. Moss isn't it. He should be done. And James Cook
is a rookie.
And he's making some mistakes.
Yeah.
But the fact is, the offense line has continued to struggle with getting holes. The pass protection still isn't great. I think it's frustrating that the Bills have invested so much in this defensive line with and it's worked out for them. Von Miller, Greg Rousseau, Boogie Basham, AJ Epinesa, getting those free agents in the middle. But the lack of going for the offensive line has been really. I mean, Saffold hasn't worked out. He's really struggled.
Yeah.
Morris is a little banged up, but Morris really isn't a run blocking center, and he's not a bad center, so I'm not gonna crap on him.
Oh, and that's one other thing I want to say about the Miami game. Van Rotten was really screwing the pooch on the snaps and stuff. If you look, it was bad.
It's made me respect Morris, but it's also I don't think it's a bad thing to be like, I would love for Morris to be a little bit more effective run blocking.
Mm-hmm.
But Spencer Brown, I guess, is a project we're going to see on him. Bates has also kind of struggled. So, when your interior offensive line is not very good run
against the
blocking,
run. Mm-hmm.
Brown's kind of hit and miss. Dion's a good left tackle. But, it's just struggling to me that they've put such an emphasis on the other side of the line of scrimmage that they haven't done the same thing on the other side and realize how, I'm not saying they haven't attempted, but I think having a good offensive line is better for your quarterback's health. It's better for your passing game to go deep. It's better for your running game.
Yeah.
I'm not saying go full-blown Kansas City Chiefs and, sign, you're the best guard in Joe Tooney, trade for Orlando Brown, and draft Creed Humphrey. But
you got to get someone who can open a hole for a running back.
But a little bit of that would have been kind of nice.
I mean, it's just we need that power runner to accompany Singletary's outside shifty runner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We Zach Moss is
Josh
not.
Allen.
Yeah. Pretty much that's what we've got right now. But a guy like Saquon Barkley, if we had him paired with Singletary,
Saquon's more similar to Singletary.
Zero interest in Saquon Barkley.
He's more of a elusive receiving back.
But I mean, he's above average, and we only have average. That's kind of where the thought is now.
Yeah, but I don't think upgrading the running back position is the way to go. I think that's the wrong. I think they have tried to think. I think they believe that the running back position was the problem, and I think they have to start realizing that it's not the problem.
It's the offensive line.
The offensive line.
Yeah.
It's the lack of really people that can move. And again, they attempted with Saffold. Saffold's old. I don't think he's played particularly well.
No, we honestly, first round pick next year, let's just draft a big O lineman.
No, they I think they should. I think they need to get bigger up front. Ryan Bates.
Like, you got Deion Dawkins, who's great. You need like 4 more Deons.
They have a very athletic offensive line for the most part, but they don't have a very powerful offensive line. I think they need to
you need a tank up there to open a hole.
They need to get some guys. But I think talking about our concerns at the about the quarter mark. I know it's kind of weird now, 4 game, 17-game season, but I think that would be my main concern is that the offensive line really is struggling and is affecting.
It's affecting both the passing game too, because Josh had pressure on him
Passing
too.
game and run game. Also, I think everyone's main thing is injuries. I think they're going to be able to sustain defensively because all those guys are going to be coming back, except obviously Hyde. So it's going to be interesting to see if Damar Hamlin.
I'm glad Dane Jackson was in the game this past weekend. I will say that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
No, it's really encouraging.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see if Damar Hamlin can lock down that other safety spot and play well. But I don't know. What are your guys' concerns? Obviously, the wide receiver health is a concern as well.
No, I know you're bringing up like the offensive line is kind of the stem of all of it. I think we've been at times too one-dimensional trying to get the passing game. Like, I think we need to turn to the run game, but like I know obviously it would be to no avail if the offensive line is struggling. So I agree that like upgrades are going to have to be made because like truly you have to be balanced in order to be successful. You can't just always throw. Like, if Josh Allen's consistently throwing at 40, 50 times a game, his arm's going to be shot. Like, it doesn't matter how big and strong you are, like, he's going to be shot. And then if he's, like, your power runner, same thing. Like, you don't want your franchise quarterback taking those hits and all that. I know we were talking about, like, our depth at, like, wide receiver and how deep it was. I think that's getting tested right now because Crowder's out indefinitely with an ankle.
Kumro's gone.
Kumro's hurt. Davis isn't completely healthy right now, so we're really relying. And then McKenzie, we don't know.
He's in concussion protocol.
Yeah, he might miss a few games.
Oh God.
So right now we have Diggs and then Khalil Shakir. So
the 2 guys are fully healthy.
yeah, so
And Davis will be out there, but how much he'll be doing is the question.
So I mean, like, I think maybe you have to start exploring some options there. Obviously, the big one would be like, Odell, but he's not even going to be healthy until later in the season. So,
do you think it'd be worth it though, in case some of these what if Crowder's really?
If Crowder broke his ankle,
it's just
yeah,
the most
that's what I'm
unfortunate
saying,
thing
like,
is that we have all these injuries at corner, so we sign Xavier Rhodes and then he gets hurt in practice. Like, that's just
not what we need.
Really unfortunate.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I think the past few years we've been very lucky with injuries. We've been relatively healthy, and this year we're really getting tested to see how deep our roster really is.
I mean, honestly though, pulling off the win still is confidence for me, but I definitely would say, my concern, along with what Dom was saying, is that front offensive line and the way there's no run game, there's nothing happening, and it's I was just enlightened because I was one of the people who always blamed it on the running backs, but Dom made a very good point. Like, we don't have a tank up there who's opening the holes or blocking these big guys. Like, it's got to be, we got to have more depth up front on the offense instead of just the defense, and that's a concern at the quarter mark into the year, and just
it's gonna be a concern at the end of the year because there's no real way to fix it other than those 5 guys have to get chemistry together.
Well, and then you're watching teams like the Chiefs and how Patrick Mahomes is playing. He has all that time, in their run game. Edwards-Helaire at an old age is still flying through,
The Chiefs this last week against the Bucs front, who was a pretty good front, had 150 yards before contact.
Yeah.
Like, that's an insane number.
And that's what you get with, like you said, the way they got their offensive line set up.
Granted, they also have invested a lot in the offensive line.
But that's kind of not exactly what the Bills need to do now, but it's definitely like they should try and, bump theirs up close to it. Like, not go that crazy, but do something.
Let's just put it this way. They need to invest more than what they've done. Mm-hmm. This is kind of like the similar conversation about cornerback for the longest time with the Bills, is that how long are you going to continue to say you could have average corner play, like alongside Trey White, until you actually have to improve to become good or borderline elite there?
Yeah.
The offensive line has been average for years. This year it's been kind of below average.
It's funny, when we had a bad quarterback, the offensive line was better than it is now
Well, 'cause
statistically.
you didn't have to pay the bad quarterback.
Yeah.
It does pay to have a good quarterback. And Josh is, that's a thing where is this Dorsey making it less long throws, or is it because the offensive line? They're telling Josh, hey, get the ball out.
Mm-hmm.
Yak. I guess that's the presence, like the importance of Yak. So, I mean, I believe in Ken Dorsey's ability and Josh Allen, Joe Brady to figure out the offensive minds and the team to figure out a way to get the running game going. They got the running game going at the end of last year a little bit. With Singletary in those playoff games and down the stretch. So I feel like they have to do that, but they have to do it in a way that it doesn't really involve Josh Allen. I'm okay with an occasional scramble.
Right, like what he did for the touchdown. He ran around outside and went up. Like, I'm fine with that.
And occasionally a designed run.
Mm-hmm.
But I really would like him to not take as many hits as we're only 4 games in the year, only a quarter in the year.
Yeah.
So.
And he's the team's leading rusher.
He's a team leading rusher by a bit.
Yeah.
3 of the 4 games he's been the leading rusher. And the only game he wasn't was the Titans game where he ran once.
Yeah.
And I think James Cook might have been the leading rusher.
And he didn't play for the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and James Cook might have been the leading rusher because he had like that 40-yard run.
Against their backups, though. They pulled every starter,
So quickly, we've going a little long, but 2 games to discuss. Obviously, quarter mark. Let's quickly talk about some quarter of the year awards for us. Obviously, I think all of us had the same. Honestly, I think we're going to be mostly unanimous in a lot of this, but MVP.
Josh.
Yeah, Josh Allen.
Josh has.
He's leading the league in passing and touchdowns right now.
Does he have passing yards?
No, Herbert passed him.
Herbert passed him?
He only had 214.
I see.
And Diggs is 2 in receiving.
Yeah, and Allen's, I think, top 5 in passing touchdowns. I think he has 10. The leader has 11.
He's the only player in the NFL that's 100% for all the offensive touchdowns.
Offensive touchdowns,
because it was, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, and then obviously he has 83%, I believe, of their total offensive production, which is just an insane number that cannot continue.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's pretty clear that he's the MVP. I think Defensive Player of the Year is also pretty clear. Joe, do you?
No, I want to hear who's pretty clear.
I think it's pretty clear it's Jordan Poyer. 3 games, 4 picks.
Yeah.
I think it's
All-Pro Poe.
I think he can make a case maybe. I mean, Groot has 4 sacks, but I think Von Miller's been their best edge.
I did issue an apology tweet to Rachel Bush for calling her out all those times, though.
No, she still deserved to get called out.
At the time, yes, but he does deserve the money.
Just because her man is playing well doesn't mean...
But he deserves the money, I think.
No, he does. I don't think anyone disagreed with that.
No, that's why I said, okay, he deserves to be paid. I didn't apologize for what I said necessarily, but I was just like, okay, he deserves to be paid.
Offensive...
Mike, what are you thinking?
No, that's fair.
You in agreement?
Yeah, maybe a short-term deal.
He's older, so yeah. I mean, I don't. It can't be anything like Fitzpatrick.
It's hard for a Defensive Player of the Year right now because Milano's playing at a high level. Groot has 4 sacks in 4 games. Von Miller's played very well.
Yeah.
Boogie Basham, I believe, is actually one of the higher graded according to PFF.
Yeah, because that
Boogie's
interception,
man.
Yeah.
I think Boogie actually is the number 1 edge defender according to PFF.
Really?
He's like a 90.0 grade.
Good for
Wow,
him.
look at that.
Good for
Boogie
him.
Basham, 55, wearing Jerry Hughes' old number, still confuses me to this day. Not used
The
to
inner
it.
Jerry is coming out of him.
Looks weird.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. Let's talk about the rookies. I guess offense. Like I think we could just skip because I don't.
I mean, yes.
Are we gonna be real?
Hopefully, maybe
James Cook,
like
hopefully.
Shakir, maybe
That's
if he
gotta be
steps up.
hopefully
You know?
Yeah, I mean, James Cook's he's got to work some stuff out.
Defense, I would say Elam.
Elam.
Benford's a
Shut
close
down.
second. Benford's a close second.
Unfortunately, broke his hand though, so I mean that's the problem with
They're
that.
kind of the only 2 rookies that have been playing defense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's the minor frustration I think a lot of fans are having, is that this draft class has not fully produced, stars in the short term. Like Terrell Bernard, the 3rd round pick, hasn't really touched the field. You saw Terrell Dobson.
Yeah.
He was the one that was getting the 3rd linebacker looks in the base defense when they took Taron Johnson out the field. Not Bernard. James Cook played 2 offensive snaps
Yeah.
on Sunday.
Yeah, and they still put Zach Moss in to get stuffed at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, Zach Moss only played 8 snaps.
Yeah, because I think they understand.
No, but Devin Singletary played 80% of snaps.
That as he should. He's the most productive running back.
I agree. I'm not disagreeing, but from that point, it's frustrating. It's just been a little bit lackluster, I would say, the draft class has been so far. But obviously, we're only 4 weeks in. I think those 2 offensive players are going to get a bigger role. Hopefully, Bernard can do something. Obviously, Spector playing on special teams, being active, is a cool sign for a 7th round pick.
Yeah.
And Yeah, I guess if we want to do quickly one more thing of special teams player,
Yeah. Sure.
Sam Martin.
I think it's gotta be Sam Martin, man.
No, he had
muffed
some good punts.
He had 2 punts that were muffed by opponents, one that was recovered.
He's got a weird backspin on it. That's why. Have you ever? Did you see how it goes through the air?
Mm-hmm. And he made the big. Honestly, he made a really underrated play in the fourth quarter, punting that ball in the coffin corner to the 4-yard line because they went from like their own 5 to the Bills 1.
Yeah.
Like if
They were
that point was
gassed.
at that point was at like the 9-yard line, they score a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Touchback, it's a touchdown.
Yeah.
So like,
No, he's definitely
He's doing his job.
Yeah, he's stepped in and he's doing pretty good.
Also, shout out to Tyler Bass for his first career game leading field goal within 2 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
game
because
winning.
that-
Yeah.
He would if he. Yeah, he can't be my player of the year right now. So it's just because he missed that 30-yard field goal in Miami.
Where we would have been on top if he.
Yeah,
If he had made
I
that.
don't really know what happened there, but Jameson Crowder was solid punt returning.
Oh, we didn't even mention the butt punt.
Yeah, the butt punt that doesn't count. It actually counts as a negative 1-yard punt. And that counts as a block punt. There's a stat correction on that. So.
Is there actually?
So obviously the Bills are 3-1. It was actually a very successful week for the Bills because the Dolphins lost to Cincinnati and the Bills beat Baltimore. And if the Dolphins and Bills, say the Bills beat the Dolphins, but they somehow tie in record, one of the things that's one of the tiebreakers
If the Bills beat Cincy.
is common opponents.
Mm-hmm.
So the Bills and Dolphins both play Baltimore. Bills got to win. Dolphins got to win. Bills and Dolphins both play Cincinnati. Bills haven't played them, and Miami took a loss. So that could be important down the road.
Play them in 2 weeks, right? Or the week after this one.
Who? Cincinnati?
Yeah.
That's
No,
week
we played
17.
Kansas City in 2 weeks ago,
Kansas
guys.
City. Sorry, I'm all messed up.
We played them like at the end of the year in Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
The last Monday Night Football broadcast.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Sorry, I got the Chiefs mixed up. But I think that's going to do it for our first Bills topic for in a little while. So we'll be right back with some Sabres right after this. This edition of the Buffalonian Podcast is brought to you by the Cast Source Podcast Network, a podcast network built with and for entrepreneurs, featuring shows such as Sports Bring People Together. Listen to entrepreneurial conversations with those in sports, could be players, agents, and so on. And who knows where the conversation will take you, but sports got us together in the first place. Find this show wherever you listen to podcasts or simply visit sportseplus.com. And now let's get back to the show. We are back with the Buffalonian Podcast. We're moving into our Sabres topic. The Sabres are nearing the end of the preseason, and the season's going to kick off October 13th, you said, Don?
Yes. Week from this Thursday.
Week from this Thursday. Wow. Off-season flew by pretty quick. I remember we were talking about...
I don't know about
quicker
that.
than the Bills. I mean, it is, but I mean, it
It
feels...
is a shorter time.
Yeah,
That's
it
true.
feels way quicker than the Bills. But is there anything like... They play tonight. They play their...
They play Carolina. Carolina's 4-0 in the preseason. The Sabres are 3-1. So, it's a heavyweight battle.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
They've looked pretty good so far. I'm not complaining about anything, really.
This is kind of their big dress rehearsal, I would say.
Yeah.
Obviously, they sent down a lot of people to Rochester to do the Rochester training camp that started a couple days ago. Obviously, they loaned Matt Savoy back to the WHL. He looked pretty good. And I believe he is 6-0 if you count the prospect challenge.
And a Sabre sweater. Yep.
Only lost was without him. So
Wearing a Sabres sweater right now.
no, Big Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Just gonna play on that top line, but I think it's really important for the Sabres to continue building what they have. And I don't think the preseason matters a lot to me personally because it's kind of whatever. But if you're building a culture, you want to win, and winning the preseason is important to building a culture to some people. And I think Granato and Adams believe that. They gave their young guys a lot of opportunities to play, and some of them struggled, but I think it was cool to see moments for Yuri Kulich, Isaac Rosen, those Tyson Kozak, Matt Savoy. I can go on and on. They had a lot of guys that were very young playing in these preseason games, getting not NHL, but playing against grown men.
Yeah.
And
No, they're playing against a few regular NHL players.
that's true. No, they were.
Yeah, but even though it's a preseason, they're still the best of the best in the world. It's still gonna make a difference for them. It's still gonna give them confidence. You got to think Matt Savoy, he's gonna have confidence rolling into juniors this year, being I feel like I had a really strong training camp preseason in the NHL,
Yeah.
I'm gonna roll in and be like, I know I can play at that level.
Yeah,
So
and you see Coolidge being the 20th overall pick and now playing in the AHL.
27th. Yeah.
27th?
27th.
28th.
Either way.
He was 20th.
Either way.
But the point is, like, late first round pick coming up. Isaac Rosine finally maybe getting some ice time. Alexander Kisakov. Him playing in Rochester's kind of loaded. I didn't really think. I think at the end of the last season with the Amherst with the rundown, we all kind of like, well, Jack Quinn, JJ Peterka probably won't be in Rochester.
Did we have them on the rundown?
Mm-hmm. It seems like a while ago.
Is that who we used to have before the Blue Jays and the Bisons?
Yep.
Amherst
might be returning soon with the.
Yeah, because the Blue Jays and Bisons are.
Well, the Bisons are done.
Yeah.
We're ending them today, and the Blue Jays could potentially be done very soon. So, we all kind of thought that the Amherst were gonna have, not as talented, but they might not have the top guys they did last year, but they're definitely
a lot of young guys.
A lot of talented group. They also added the Rochester Defense Corps. They actually have an actual AHL Defense Corps. So, I know this is a Sabres topic, but it's exciting for those young guys to develop together. And obviously today, with the final dress rehearsal, to figure out who your lines are, who are going to be your guys. There's a couple more cuts that need to be made.
Will our predictions come to fruition, you think?
Well, I think it's going to be interesting right now because they waived Malcolm Subban, so they have Comrie, Anderson, UPL. I think UPL is going to be one of those guys that's going to go up and down a little bit. I think they're going to try and give him some time in Buffalo, but most of his time will probably be in Rochester.
I think they're more concerned with UPL about just getting him games rather than where he plays. They just want him to play. Yeah. So wherever the opportunity bestows itself, that's where he's going to be.
And then you look at it for the Sabres right now. They have you have 21 skaters, right? You have 21 skaters normally on your roster.
There's a yeah.
Obviously, a couple of
23 overall.
Scratches,
23 overall. They could potentially keep UPL up and have 20 skaters and 3 goalies. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they want to get UPL time down there of Subban.
They're not going to. Yeah, he's not just going to sit in the press box.
Yeah, I think they. I don't think that.
If any goalie sitting in the press box, it's probably going to be Craig Anderson.
Yeah, and I think they're going to start with Comrie and Anderson. So if you think of that perspective, they have 21 skater spots, and it's going to be interesting how they divvy up those spots in the fact of the 8 D-men that are still kind of available, in my opinion, to be on the roster. Samuelson Dahlin is a lock.
Mm-hmm.
Power Yokiharu is a lock.
Yep.
Bryson Labuskin's a lock. So now the 8 spots are going to come down to, I know they have a couple other AHL defensemen, I believe, still up, but really that 7th spot is going to come down to Lawrence Pilot and Casey Fitzgerald. And then also, I guess you could have a conversation of, do they keep both of them? I don't think that would be wise. I think they're going to keep one of them. So they're going to have 7 defensemen probably.
Who would you rather see down there, though? Like Pilot or...
I would say I would want to see...
I'd rather have Fitzgerald be the 7th defenseman.
No, I'd rather have Pilot be the 7th
defenseman. I'm thinking Pilot. I think we signed him. I feel like you have to see how he goes,
Pilot is, I think, better than Fitzgerald. I also think for Fitzgerald's development, is it best for him to be in a press box or be the number 1 defenseman in Rochester? I think that has to matter. But I also think Pilot's kind of good enough to potentially push Bryson out of his spot if Bryson struggles. I think he could get consistent playing time. So, and he's looked very good so far in the preseason and training camp. So, I think Pilot would be my 7th. And then obviously, they have 15 forwards, I believe, currently up. Obviously, Skinner, Thompson, Olofsson, we're talking about their lines, but that's their top line for tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Quinn, Middlestat, Tuck. And you got Krebs, Cousins, Peterka, Gergensons, Aspen, Oposo, and then Hinestroza, Sheehan, and Bjork. So you have to think, I think they're going to do, 7 defensemen, 14 forwards?
Yeah.
So if you have 14 forwards, that means you have 2 healthy scratches. And I would say a healthy scratch easily is Hinestroza. So you kind of have...
Yeah.
And then I think Bjork is going to get waived to Rochester. I think you're going to have Sheehan as a second healthy scratch, and then you're going to have Peterka in there. But it's interesting because I think Peterka, Hinestroza, Bjork and Sheehan are like the 4 forwards competing for 3 forward spots.
Mm-hmm.
But you could also say they're competing for 2 forward spots if you want to keep Fitzgerald and have 8 D-men. It's kind of interesting how you look at it.
Yeah.
Do you think they would keep Fitzgerald though and have 8? Or
I don't
would they-
Or I mean again, or the UPL thing happens and that's another 2 forward spots.
Yeah.
I think they're at least keeping like that many, I think. But
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting how that's going to pan out though, because it really could change how their lineup works. You know.
well, Peterka's struggled a little bit in the preseason. He's looked good in transition, but he's struggled kind of a little bit overall. Krebs has looked really bad in the preseason.
Really?
Yeah, he's looked terrible. We've talked about it a lot that he's a premier passer, and he makes 2 of those passes that are like I don't think anyone on the roster can make. But overall, 5-on-5, he turns the puck over, can't play defense. He's going to be an interesting guy if he somehow struggles if they send him down.
Yeah.
But a guy that's looked very good has been Jack Quinn. Jack Quinn's looked very well, very aggressive. Obviously, he can probably have a little bit of defensive issues, but he's looked very sharp. Powers look sharp. Yoki Haru has looked terrible, so that's not a great sign.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Buskin seems like that was more for Bryce. That signing was more for Bryson than it was for Power, which I think is intriguing.
Yeah.
But no, I guess we talk about a little bit about the young prospects playing. That's exciting. Talked a little bit about the last spots, what could happen. Obviously not against Carolina, but I mean, does anyone else have any thoughts on how people have played? Mike, do you have any?
I'll be completely honest with you. I tried to watch one of the streams on their website.
Yeah, the stream
did not work.
No, it was pretty bad.
It's kind of salty.
No,
we were on Xbox one night. And I was pulling one up, and that was that. It wasn't anything.
Yeah, I've been just kind of looking.
Tonight it's on MSG though, so
that is true.
You can watch it on television.
Cable, man.
Yeah.
Cable TV. But I've been trying to understand what other people have been trying to who've been able to watch the game, kind of their thoughts.
Kind of reminded me of the first stream of Thursday Night Football on Prime. It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
It was not working.
UPL has played very well. I think that is a very good sign for his development.
He's not made of glass, hopefully.
Yeah, so I want to get a quick thought on the lines today, because if we're just going to say at face value that this is going to be the squad.
Yeah, so I'll just jump in here. I think the one that stands out most to me is Middlestat as second line center.
Yeah.
I can respect the decision, putting him with Quinn, who's a goal scorer, and then having kind of Tuck be that two-way guy, kind of covering for both of them, and kind of being the veteran presence.
Did any of us have Middlestat in our predictions? Second line?
I don't even think I had Middlestat in my lineup.
You didn't have him in the lineup. So that was.
Where did we have him? I know
Third
you and
line. Definitely third line.
I think I had Cousins.
Might have been
my second
fourth
center.
line, but
I almost remember fourth line, but
the
I
thing
don't know.
that is interesting for me is really 3 thoughts on the forwards. One is that they're going a full-on defensive line with Asplund, Gergensons, Oposo, which I think is interesting. So they're going to have one fully instead of splitting those 3 guys up to maybe cover for your defensive liabilities like Krebs, Middlestat, Quinn, potentially Peterka. They're just going to have one line. So that line's probably going to take a bunch of the defensive zone starts, which is see what your your defensive line does against it, and they're probably going to play against heavy competition. My second point would be that they're going to do the Skinner-Thompson-Olsen line.
Yeah.
They experimented a little at the end of last season.
I think that makes sense because thinking about if you have Skinner, Thompson, Tuck, that's going to be a successful line.
What's
But
your depth?
the thing is
You
if you
gotta
have
have
a line of Quinn, Middlestat, and Olofsson, they're kind of all. I don't think any of them can really play defense that much. Mm-hmm. So that would just be
No, you need
really
the tank
relying...
of Alex Tuck to help.
Yeah,
I
get the
odds a
decision to
little bit.
break Tuck onto the second line.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what we talked about last season, though, when we went to those games. The first top three lines would be great. They had depth. Then you get into the bottom, and you're like, whoa. It was just completely different.
It was really the top line. I think it's interesting. That line was very high event hockey. And what I mean by that is they were very explosive offensively, but they did have a couple shifts every game that they would get caved in and give up really good high scoring chances defensively. So that's going to be, if you would want to tune in for anything, that when that line's on the ice, so those things can go down.
Yeah.
And so I would say, obviously the big takeaway from that having that line is that you put Tuck away from Thompson. Mm-hmm. But I like that they paired him with Middlestat, give him a defensive reliable winger. It also shows that they need another Tuck, but we'll talk about that in a couple seconds. I think my third takeaway is that they are putting a tremendous amount of pressure on Dylan Cousins right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think overall he needs to have a breakout season. He needs to show that he could be a top 6 forward, because I think from year 1 to year 2, there's definitely a jump. Like, he definitely improved. I think year 2 to year 3, we're expecting him to make this massive jump, and I don't think necessarily we had to see him score like 60 points or something. Like, that'd be great, but I think we just need to see him overall be a two-way player, because I think that's kind of what we want him to be. We want him to be a solid defensive forward who can control, being a center, control the ice.
Yeah.
Be able to make these plays. And, he's probably going to be, in the long run, you would think, paired with a Quinn or at some point, like a Kulich or Savoy. So having guys that are more offensive-minded, he needs to be that guy who's kind of more defensive. He can have a two-way game, control the ice more, and just kind of let Quinn score.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I know I like to use the term do or die, but I think I said that about Middlestat.
I 100% disagree if you're going to say this is a do or die.
No, I'm not going to say do or die. But no, I was thinking back to where I put Middlestat, but no, I think it is time for him to take that step, and I think they're putting pressure on him for a reason. I think he's got to really, solidify his spot, but it's not like he's going anywhere. I mean, he's Dylan Cousins.
No.
He's gonna develop at some point, but
they need him to become a top 6 center.
Yeah.
They need him.
They just need him for depth purposes and to be able to step, be a tank. Like that's really it.
They're putting a lot of pressure on him, dealing with Krebs, who's not a great 5-on-5 player, and they're pairing him with rookie, so they're putting him with a lot of responsibility.
I think it's because they trust him though. In the end,
I think it's trust. I think it's his growth defensively throughout the last year. I think all three of those guys are fantastic transition players. Mm-hmm. So they should really thrive in transition, which could help them exit their zone and get into the zone for offense. I just get worried that they're going to get caved in a couple times and not be able to exit, and that's when those defensive, defensive warts are gonna come up. So I'm a little concerned about that line, and then the pairings, your boy Samuelson being top pair. How does it make you feel?
Yeah, I kind of just bask in it, because I remember the first development camp.
I don't think I've heard that in a long time. Bask in it.
All the Samuelson slander.
Right.
And I was like, no, he's going to be good. Like, I guarantee it. He'll be an effective player. And
I feel like you got to get his jersey.
Who here was like, oh, no, he's not that good?
I was.
Yeah. And
I own my cold takes. Joe, on the other hand.
What's a cold take I haven't owned? Name one.
Lamar Jackson.
We beat him.
Okay.
We took away his run game.
He is an MVP candidate, though.
Not in my eyes. We'll see how the season progresses.
Okay, we're not talking about football. We're on hockey.
They'll have a losing record by the end of the season. But
okay. Anyway,
that's a take. I'll own that. I'll own that if that happens.
Okay.
I think the thing that stands out to me is that Lyubushkin is playing with Bryson instead of Power, because I thought more signing Lyubushkin was going to be he was going to be the defensive guy and would cover for Power, kind of let Power move up.
I think you and I talked about that when it was just you and I here.
Kind of let Power play his game, push up into the offensive zone, and then Lyubushkin, if he gets caught, can kind of cover for him, and then, be like, hey, kid, like, this is what we're going to, help develop him. So having Yoki Haru with him, I guess he's more of a two-way defenseman. Like,
you know what he is? He's a no-way defenseman.
Like he hasn't been all that great. I know
it's cold.
I know past few years I'm always like, he's still young, he's still developing, gotta give him a shot. But like, you can't only say that for so long.
Past few years, you said that like a couple months ago.
I know, but I'm thinking this is a really telltale year for Yoki Haru.
Should we use Joe's line saying it's a make or break year for him?
No, it's do or die.
Do or die. Sorry, you're right.
I mean, I think he really has to show that he can.
We said that about Middlestat, and he's second line center.
All right, just because he's starting off hot, we'll see. You gotta show me, man. We got when the games count. Come find me. We'll see. Yoki Haru's been brutal. I don't know. I'm worried about that for Power's film. I think him and Cousins, I'm just concerned about. They have a lot of burden to carry it, and I worry that that's gonna hurt the development. But we'll see. It might turn out to be a great thing. And two quick notes I want to talk about that doesn't involve the game being played. One is, I don't believe we talked about this. I wasn't here for the last pod, but GMKA got his contract extended. Don't believe that.
That's really encouraging to me because we finally settled in on a general manager that we trust.
Yeah, he's
that we're
running
gonna
through the
move forward
streets of
with.
Buffalo with the people.
Yeah, so
They're not going to fire him the next month, though.
no.
Jason Farrell, this is our guy. Next month.
Oh my gosh, absolutely! If they do that, I will never watch a Sabres game again.
Oh, man.
In my
you sound
entire-
like me there.
No, I'm dead serious. You have the guy. You have Granato. You have Adams. You have the squad that's gonna get this team into the postseason and turn them into a contender. If you screw this up somehow as an organization, you don't deserve to be an organization. That's just all I have to say.
You know what? Sometimes you're a little over the top, Joe. I 100% agree with you on this. I think they've been searching for a while for a solid GM ever since Darcy, the downfall of Darcy, and they found one. He's building the team the right way, and I'm excited to see he has a lot of picks, a lot of assets. I'm excited to see how he builds his team. So talking about the GMK extension kind of doesn't go hand in hand, but Jason Robertson, the 40 goal scorer last year for Dallas, and then you guys don't know really about Dallas. Dallas is a very defensive-minded team, very low-event hockey, really focused on trying to control the neutral zone, kind of like the neutral zone trap.
Yeah.
Of not allowing quality against you, but not really producing quality. Very old team as well, with Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin kind of past their primes. So not a lot of forward talent. For him to put up 40 goals in that area is really impressive. He's easily a top 15, probably even a top 10 winger in the league.
Mm-hmm.
He's a restricted free agent right now. He does not have a contract, so he's currently not even playing with Dallas right now because technically he's an RFA, but he doesn't have a contract. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they had to pay him because their owner came out during the offseason and said, yeah, we're probably not going to pay him what he's worth, which is a little ridiculous. But you see all these other GMs make commitments to Tage Thompson, Robert Thomas, guys that are getting $8 million a year now in their next extensions. Like Jason Robinson looked at them like I should be getting at least $9.5.
See, like when I heard that rumor, the initial thought was like, yo, that's like amazing. Like that would be great to have a guy who's 23 years old.
Young Q, yep.
Yeah, put up 40 goals, 70 points. Like,
Yeah.
He's going to be elite.
It was a nice catch. The phone almost hit the ground right there. That was quick. Sorry, continue.
But I wasn't even looking. Anyway. So, but once you like start thinking about it, it's like, well, what would we have to give up? Probably some first round picks and some of our high end prospects, and we're going to have to pay Jason Robertson $9 to $10 million. So the trade off is you get Jason Robertson on this team. Yeah, he'll be an instant impact player, but down the road, his salary will affect how you can pay a Darlene, an Owen Power, like a Jack Quinn, all these guys. I would rather have the prospects that we have and develop in-house and be able to sign them to extensions than bring in Robertson.
I have
faith that Jack Quinn can be a 40-goal scorer.
I'm not touching Robinson with the 10-foot pole.
I mean,
And here's
I wouldn't
why.
say that.
No. It's not because of him.
Robertson.
Let's face it.
I'll let you
Robertson.
Finish. I'll let you finish.
It's not because of it's not because of any performance issues. It's just I like the way they're building the team with the prospects we have, and they've preached it for years. We're gonna get these prospects. We're gonna build the team up from nothing, and Kevin Adams and Don Granato, like I said, been doing a good job. We have the number 1 ranked prospect group in the NHL. Don't give it away for a 40 goal scorer one season, in my opinion.
Yeah, but he's been consistent.
Listen. Let me finish here. We have prospects who could turn into that.
What word did you just use there?
Could.
Thank you.
I'd rather take the chance. I'm a gambling man. I'd rather take the chance.
This is my point about the whole situation. I think this is a little bit similar to Alex DeBrincat, but I think Robertson's actually better than DeBrincat. I think he has a more interesting appeal to me because of, DeBrincat played with Patrick Kane, very high event.
Oh my God.
The high event system in Chicago. I think what Robertson did in the low event system in Dallas is more impressive. I think the reason why I would be intrigued and I'd probably be willing to take the gamble is what Joe just said was important. You're banking on those prospects that could be Jason Robertson. Jason Robinson is that guy. He is that 40-goal scorer. He is 23 years of age. He's entering his prime. He fits the age group that is going to be the team. He fits that age group. He's in that core age that you want to have. Darlene, I believe the same age. I think Donnelly might be 22, but he's in that age group of being 23.
Who would you give up for him, though?
So this is what you'd probably have to give up. It's interesting because I don't really think this is going to happen because Dallas is kind of a team that has a lot of veterans and might want to make a playoff push. I don't know if they would be willing to give up futures, but you'd probably have to be willing to give up. Probably have to protect your 23 first-round pick. You probably have to trade a roster player. And I mean by a roster player is you probably have to trade. Trying to think of an example, like Casey Middlestat or Henry Yokiharu or Mattias Samuelsson. You'd probably have to trade one of those three guys. Then you probably have to trade two of your better prospects. And what I mean by better is if you look at 2019, the 2022 draft, all those first round picks, you probably had to pick two of those guys out and part with them. Or like if you want to go deeper in Levi. And then if you want to go deeper than that, maybe you try and see what they think about Eric Petillo. Obviously, I don't think that will work out because they have a young goaltender in Odger. Maybe they would be interested in a young defenseman like Ryan Johnson. So that's probably what you have to part of. So like an example of a trade in my head would be Middlestat, 23 protected first round pick, JJ Peterka, Payne Krebs.
I feel like you'd have to give up more.
You have to give more than that.
I feel like that's.
I feel like you'd have to throw in
I don't think
maybe like a Rosen or Oslin or something. I feel like that would have to be part
Listen,
of it.
I understand.
And
that
I feel like they'd want a better roster player than Casey Middlestat. I feel like they'd want like an Olofsson or.
Okay. Olsen. Fine. I'll trade
I
Olsen.
understand the draw for him.
No, wait.
I don't agree that we should give away that much.
I would automatically do that. I would automatically trade Olofsson. Olofsson's what? A 20.
Oh, I'm not saying I wouldn't trade Olofsson.
No,
I said we should trade Olofsson at the deadline
But
last
this is
year.
my point on all the pieces. Olofsson is a 20-goal scorer that is a one-way player.
Mm-hmm.
That 23 protected first-round pick, if you want to make it lottery protected, fine, whatever. You won't lose that pick. You'll probably make that really a 24 first-round pick. That's okay. Fine by me. A guy like Peterka, is there going to be a spot in a couple of years of Coolidge coming up? Like I think what's happening is people look at this prospect pool and they don't realize that there's not going to be spots for all of them.
Yeah.
Two things are going to be true. One, they're not all going to hit.
Mm-mm.
Like they aren't all going to be stars. Like we're seeing a little bit of Krebs. We saw it with Middlestat. Like
Yeah.
Yokiharu. Like not all these dudes are going to hit, and there's not going to be spots enough for all of them. So I would totally be willing to trade two of them, a protected first-round pick, and an all-right roster player to get a superstar who would automatically become the best player on your team.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about this at fruition that they need to find another Alex Tuch. They need to find Alex Tuch. Jason Robinson is Alex Tuch on steroids. Like, think of having a top line of Skinner, Thompson, Robertson.
Yeah.
Then you have Tuch with, who you have. And then you figure out your lines after that. But I think I would be really intrigued by it.
No, it's definitely something to consider. Like, I'm not like Joe where I'm like 10-foot pole. I'm not touching it here. Like, it's something to be intrigued. I just kind of want to see how, Kevin Adams and Don Gordano can develop this team. I'm kind of more curious about that. I kind of like the potential of our prospects.
If we're going to be honest, we're probably a year away from making this move. I think we talked about this in the offseason to bring it. We're probably a year away from actually making this legit kind of move.
Well, that's kind of where my head was at because it's like we're not in win now mode or anything like that to make a move like that.
Just because we're not win now mode doesn't mean you can't trade some of your futures to get better. And it's not like you're trading.
What if he completely plateaus this year though, and that's it?
All right, you could say that of a bunch of people. What if Jeff Skinner falls back off to being a 20-point player?
Right. But
that's my point. But my point is that I think Jason Robinson is a certified superstar. And so, what would you be willing to give up to be? What would you be willing to give up? A certified superstar that you could potentially have on a long-term contract throughout their entire prime. And you guys think it's weird because he's an RFA, and Dallas hasn't paid him yet.
Can they even pay him? I don't think they have cap space.
I think
because Jamie Benn's north of 9.
That's my
Sagan's
thing. Like they're
9.
a team that actually is like in trouble. And I believe the deadline to sign him is like in sometime in December. I know Willie Nylander missed time when he was an
December
RFA.
1st.
Something like that. And then he becomes unrestricted, I'm pretty sure.
Next year he'll be on UFA, yeah.
No, I think if they don't sign him, he becomes unrestricted.
I don't know. I don't think he can play. I don't think he's eligible for the year, but I think
that's
the following
true.
year he's UFA.
I think there's something. But I think that's my point is this: if they don't sign him soon, Like, if they don't sign before the season, I think it gets interesting.
No, I definitely say acquiring his RFA rights and signing him that will be more effective than if he hits the UFA market, because then you're going to have to truly overpay for him.
Well, also, it's important, too, he's an RFA.
Yeah.
Like, RFA forwards usually go... Like, this dude doesn't have a contract. Like, we saw DeBrincat...
Okay, but here, I just want to add to this quick. Would you rather trade for him or put an offer sheet?
Trade. I don't want to trade for first-round picks.
Okay.
I think that'd be kind of...
Yeah. I'm just curious.
No, I'd rather trade
that's
personnel now than trade
I would
away picks.
rather trade, like... I would rather trade, like, 3 first-round picks of... Like a first-round pick. Equivalent of 3 first-round picks and maybe some change to that, rather than trade 4 first-round picks that I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because then you still kind of would have to eventually trade some.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting thing.
Well, Darcy didn't want to do that.
No, Darcy wouldn't want to do that. Darcy's silly. My thing is this. He instantly becomes the best player in your team. And listen, there's certain prospects that I would be like, okay, out. Like, I'm not trading Darlene for him. I probably would say no to Cousins because I need him for the center reason. I wouldn't trade Savoy. I wouldn't trade Power. And honestly, I can't believe I'm saying this, but like Samuelson would be out for me. Like if they were asking for a roster player and they said we want Samuelson, I'd be like, you gotta pick someone else. Because like that's actually a top 4 defenseman, and I don't really want to part of him. But those would be like the couple of guys. Like Jack Quinn, I think would be available, because you're looking at Jack Quinn as a guy that could become Jason Robertson. I think that's the key, is that Jason Robertson is that. So.
Well, that's kind of where my head was at, saying I wouldn't, because I'd rather see Jack Quinn develop into that than Rush now.
I don't think Jack Quinn and Jason Robertson are the same player. I think Jason Robertson's more of a rounded player than Jack Quinn.
Jason Robinson's probably... Jack Quinn's going to be a sniper.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Robinson's a sniper with like a full rounded game.
Exactly. I don't think Jack Quinn's going to be more two-way.
But that's what I'm saying.
I think Robertson is more two-way.
But that's what I'm saying.
No, I know what you're saying.
No, but,
yeah. He's more like that Tuck, like you said, Tuck on steroids.
Yeah, stuck on steroids.
But,
I like that one.
But yeah, no. Interesting.
I think it's an interesting point. I do think they're kind of a year away, but I just think I keep saying to myself they're a year away from doing this. They're actually a year away from doing this. But the Dallas situation is so unique that
now might be a time to do it.
I honestly feel like this. I mean, there's potential that you get him for like 70 cents on the dollar. Like, there's potential where you do the first, you trade Middlestat.
You got to think, if they make this trade in November or something, Dallas is going to be probably a little bit more eager to get something back. So you might be able to get him for a better price.
That's what
because they'd rather get something than nothing.
It's nice to see that they were intrigued by that. Like, the rumor was that they were intrigued by that, because I think that shows that they're willing to listen to what's being offered potentially, and listen, that there's certain stuff where like if they're like, this is our price and we're sticking to it, I'd be like, all right, there's certain stuff that you'd walk on the door with, but
maybe the 10-foot pole was a little bit of an exaggeration on my end, but I mean, like, I personally would just. I understand where the appeal is, like what you're saying and everything, but I mean, me personally, I'd rather stick with what the team's been doing and, bring these guys up, and develop. I'd rather see that.
You're a gambler. Do you want to gamble on all your majority of your prospects hitting, or do you want to go for the certain thing? It's an interesting conversation to have.
Right, but then yeah. All right, well. I don't want to. We're running long already on this episode. I don't want to take it any longer, but that's going to do it for our Sabres topic for this week. And we'll be right back with the rundown after this. This edition of the Buffalonian Podcast is brought to you by the Cast Source Podcast Network, a podcast network built with and for entrepreneurs, featuring shows such as Sports Bring People Together. Listen to entrepreneurial conversations with those in sports, could be players, agents, and so on. And who knows where the conversation will take you, but sports got us together in the first place. Find this show wherever you listen to podcasts, or simply visit sportseplus.com. And now, let's get back to the show. We are back with the Buffalonian Podcast, and I'm taking you through the rundown this week. We're going to start it off with some Blue Jays talk, and the Jays are back in the postseason for the first time since 2020, the pandemic year. And the Jays currently sit at 91-69 and will end their season in Baltimore with a 3-game road set. The Jays will host Game 1 of a best-of-3 wildcard series starting Friday, October 7th. The Jays have locked up the top AL wildcard spot and the opponent will either be Seattle or Tampa Bay. Whichever one has the better record will go to Toronto, and the other to Cleveland. The highlight of the game was the Blue Jays' sweep of the Red Sox over this last weekend. That ended this season's series with the Blue Jays finishing 16-3 versus the Red Sox and outscoring them 125-55. The 16 wins are the most wins versus a single opponent in a season for the Jays. And the Jays wildcard round will conclude this weekend, so we will know next pod if the Jays season has ended or if they will continue to fight another day in the ALDS. So let's go Blue Jays. And we're going to move it on to the Bisons. And this is unfortunately the last time we'll be having the Bisons mentioned in the rundown for this season at least. So it's a sad end to the Bison season, and they missed the playoffs and did not defend their division championship crown last year, finishing at 76-72. The Bisons split their last series in Scranton 2-2, and the Bisons did finish with a positive differential of 3 runs. Nathan Lukes was the team MVP, and Matt Gage was the bullpen arm of the year, and Casey Lawrence was pitcher of the year. Lawrence led the team in ERA and wins, and Thomas Hatch led in strikeouts in innings pitched, and Matt Gage led with saves with 12. Lukes was the leader in hits, homers, and Otto Lopez led the team in average. All in all, a solid season for the Herd, and we are excited to talk more Bisons baseball coming at you this April. But next week, we don't even know what we're going to have here. It's going to just be Jays Talk for the rundown. So we're going to name the segment the Torontonian Jays Talk for next week in honor of Mike's nickname. So without further ado, that's going to end it for the rundown this week. And we'll be right back with some Would You Rather and trivia. This edition of the Buffalonian Podcast is brought to you by the Cast Source Podcast Network, a podcast network built with and for entrepreneurs, featuring shows such as Sports Bring People Together. Listen to entrepreneurial conversations with those in sports, could be players, agents, and so on. And who knows where the conversation will take you, but sports got us together in the first place. Find this show wherever you listen to podcasts, or simply visit sportseplus.com. And now, let's get back to the show.
We are back here with the Buffalonian Podcast for the Would You Rather, then later on in the segment Trivia. So this week I've taken the reins of the Would You Rather. So my Would You Rather for this week, a little bit Bills related, kind of comes back to what we were talking about in our Bills topic of,
All right.
Would you rather have an elite defensive line but an average offensive line, or an elite offensive line but an average defensive line?
Defensive line.
Yeah, defensive line, because then you're not chasing points the entire game.
I feel like if you have an elite quarterback like Allen, that makes up for having a weaker offensive line.
Exactly, because he can make plays on a dime like that.
It makes it tougher on your defense if their quarterback has a bunch of time and they're just running all over you.
But average, so it's like the 16th best defensive line. It's not like
I'd rather
you still get pressure.
One.
I'd rather still have an elite.
Really?
Because look at, you're talking about the Bills. We have an average offensive line with an elite defensive line, and look at, we're doing pretty good. Super Bowl favorites, juggernauts in the NFL. I was thinking
kind of like the Chiefs have an elite offensive line, but kind of an average D line other than Chris Jones.
I think of it this way: if you have an elite defensive line, you have an opportunity to keep points low on the other side, right? Like you putting pressure on the quarterback on the run game, you have a better opportunity to keep the points low and keep the yards low on the other side. With an offensive line and an average defensive line, you're going to have more points to go chase after. You know what I'm saying?
True, but if you had an elite offensive line, you could be more balanced and run the ball, and your quarterback will be healthier at the end of the year.
I'd still rather have an elite defense.
And it could help you in the postseason, take the time off the clock for that average defensive line doesn't have to be on the field.
I think the elite defensive line would be the way I would go still, because it's looking like the Bills right now.
I would also go with the elite defensive line, but I thought
he's making his case for it.
Listen. I think having an elite offensive line would be cool, because we don't really have that in Buffalo, and it'd be cool to have a consistent run game. But I like where the Bills are at the proper moment. The only thing I would say though is that you do need an elite. You do need a very good left tackle, and you need a very good center, because I think those are the two most important positions.
Or if you have a lefty quarterback, elite right tackle.
Yeah.
Blindside tackle. How about that? Does that make you feel better?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Dom, thank you for that. Would you rather? It was very insightful, very good one for this week. Your return to it. We're gonna kick it right to trivia with Mike.
Jump right into it.
We're gonna
here.
jump right into it.
No hesitation. Bill's question. So we know how we've struggled in one-score games the last 2 seasons. Back in 2020, they were actually 5-1 in one-score games. Who was that one loss to in 2020?
Arizona.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was the
Hail Murray. Yep. Hail
I
Murray.
had to think of their losses. Like Tennessee, they got crushed.
Yeah, no, I was thinking Tennessee popped in my mind right away, but 2020 they got obliterated.
They got obliterated. They only lost by they lost by 9 points to Kansas City. They almost lost by 1 score there. I think that was a late field goal, and then they lost in the AFC Championship game by 2 touchdowns. So
Yep. So Hail Flutie. Not Hail Flutie. Hail Murray.
Hail Murray.
Sorry.
big Doug Flutie
I'm a
fan
big
over
Doug
here.
Flutie guy, so that I see Hail.
Was that the forefront of the mind?
The what?
Like the forefront of your mind at the beginning.
Always. Anytime I hear Hail, Hail Flutie.
All right, let's move on.
Okay. Okay.
I wish we could explain what was going on in the room.
Sabres question here. 2021-2022 season's over, obviously. How many wins did they have at home? Out of 41 games, how many were wins?
29.
That's way too high.
Okay.
23.
No,
Still too high.
Come on. 18.
How many losses they had?
How many losses they had?
They had 18 losses.
They had 18
So
losses.
42.
No, wait, they had 18
Do
losses.
some math
23
now.
games.
Oh, you're saying only home games?
Only home games.
I'm gonna say they went
15.
6. They went 15, 18, and 8.
17, 18, and 6
Darn.
is their record at home last year.
We were close.
So below 500.
said 15, both of us.
I
I
said
think it's going to be a
18.
little different
I was
this
one
year.
off.
I think it'll be a little bit better. But, 17 wins. And then last question.
Close to 500.
Culture question.
Oh, man.
Niagara Falls, obviously, is a park.
Mm-hmm.
State park.
Yes.
Do we know when that was created?
When the state park was established?
Mm-hmm.
1800s?
Mm-hmm.
1876.
That's pretty close.
1882.
It's closer.
1890.
1885.
Overshot at the end there.
If I didn't say 1876, what were you gonna say?
No, I said 1800. I was gonna
Okay,
say,
you said 1800. That's such a generic.
I was going to
That's-
say
that's-
1890. That was what my final answer was.
You said 1882.
Yeah, because you got close. Like he said close, so I was just going to climb the ranks. But no, I jumped to 1890.
And my point is, if I didn't say 1876, what were you gonna say?
1890.
You said 1882.
I then said 1890 after.
Yeah, but
I said 1882 because you said that. If you didn't say that, I was going to say 1890. That's what I was saying.
okay.
Do you know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying now.
Because you said that, I said 1882. But if you,
moved-
didn't, I was going to
you
say
moved yours up
1890.
because of what I said.
Yes.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. It's if you didn't answer first, I would have just said 1890.
Yeah, but you said 1800s.
Yeah, because I knew it was in the 1800s. Yeah. Oh my God. All right, we're getting off the rails here. That's going to do it for the Buffalonian podcast. I'm Joe Callie, and I've been joined by Dom Lawson and Mike Marino for the first time in a couple weeks here. And Dom, how do you always end these?
Go Bills, baby.
Go Bills.